the top cop who put his badge on the line for justice.
You know the name Doug Poppa?
Yes, I do. God bless Doug Poppa, an honest cop.
I was elated, of course, but then as he testified, I was somewhat concerned for him, because I knew that they were probably going to crucify that man.
Sometimes the truth has a price. That may be the lesson of a Virginia police officer who says, in trying to do the right thing, he ended up paying for it.
The message you're sending is, see, we did it, Doug. You don't come out, you don't buck the system. No matter what the reason is, you just can basically keep your mouth shut. But if I wouldn't do it all over again, I would take the badge and I would leave it on somebody's desk and get out of police work. Because the day I can't tell the truth because somebody's pressuring me, and the day the system doesn't want me to tell the truth because somebody's pressuring me, is the day I'd leave the badge on the desk and walk away.
Poppa was fired for insubordination. One man who confronted truth and consequences.
From Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Doug Poppa, Truth and Consequences Podcast. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 117 of the Truth and Consequences Podcast. It's Monday, May 9th, 2022. My name is Doug Poppa, independent investigative journalist and former law enforcement officer. The allergies out here, like I was talking about the other day, are really bad again because of the wind that's blowing. I want to straighten something out before I get into today's episode, which is the title, unless I change it, is LVMPD Officer Had Poor Performance Prior to His Inaction That Caused Child Predator from Being Caught. And that's the podcast I did the other day about Airport Bureau Police Officer Diego Gutierrez. I have update information on that, and I also have update information on the other podcast I did, reference to Las Vegas Metro Police Officer Raeann Armstrong, who I talked about in the other podcast, and I have information, new information I obtained on that, reference the internal affairs investigation that's being conducted on Officer Armstrong, who, as far as I know, is still on administrative leave with pay. There's some other stuff out there on the internet saying that she resigned or left the department, and at least my sources are telling me recently that she's still on administrative leave with pay. She hasn't resigned from the police department. So before we take care of that, let me put this up on the screen here for a second. Okay. Let me get back down over here. Put me up in the, okay. Get off here for a second. Tom Roberts for sheriff. Tom Roberts, and I did this again in the last podcast, and I don't know why I keep on doing this. Get that off there for a second. Okay, that's Tom Roberts. Tom Roberts is a retired Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department assistant sheriff. And again, in the last episode, I called him a retired deputy chief, and he's not. And I keep saying that. I don't know why I keep saying deputy chief when I talk about him. So if I make that mistake again in any other podcast, and I hope I don't, I'm wrong. He's not a deputy chief. He retired at the rank of assistant sheriff, which is higher than the rank of deputy chief. Now, Tom Roberts is running for Clark County Sheriff, and he recently received the support from the Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce. I think they call it now the Vegas Chamber, which represents over 4,000 businesses in the Clark County, Nevada area, in the region. Mr. Roberts, Assistant Sheriff Roberts, also received the support of the Clark County Black Caucus. And like I tell people, you vote whoever you want. You can vote for a documented liar and documented pervert, Kevin McMahill, the retired undersheriff, Joe Lombardo's underling and cohort for years and all the cover-ups. That's what you want to do. It's your prerogative. It's a free country. And then we have retired Sergeant Stan Hite, and I did a podcast on him. And that was a gentleman on the police department years ago who decided it was okay to have sex with a female in his police cruiser, and he was fired. and then he got his job back. And then he also lied to me in the podcast. You can go back and listen to the podcast. I'll have that link to that episode in the description section of this podcast. The reason why I like Tom Roberts, and everybody knows me, I'm not political. All these left, right, conservative, Republican, Democrat, all this, everybody's got their faults. And the thing is that everybody on each side has some good ideas, but nobody can get along in this country. And that's the freaking problem we have, why we're in this mess. Anyway, enough of politics, because politics sucks as far as I'm concerned. The reason why I like Tom Roberts for sheriff is he retired at the rank of assistant sheriff. Assistant sheriffs don't run the police department. Kevin McMahill's bragging at all his campaign speeches, and when he goes to that, I'm the guy that's been running the department as the undersheriff for all these years. Joe Lombardo was the sheriff, and he's right on that. So all the cover-ups, all the backstabbing, all the targeting of police officers because McMahill or Lombardo had personality conflicts with them, and a lot of people were targeted for discipline, all because of Joe Lombardo and Kevin McMahill. Tom Roberts never ran the department. He was a rank of assistant sheriff. He ran some different departments, different organizations, different divisions in the police department. So, and I keep saying this, we have to break the chain that's been going on for decades, that the incumbent sheriff basically endorses and calls out who is going to be the next sheriff. And that's the way it's been going back 30 years since I've been here. The sheriff says, I'm endorsing this guy, my number 2, my number 3 guy. He gets all the money and the support, and then that person gets in. And that's why we have all these problems on the department for decades. And a lot of these guys that run these departments over the years, some of them have been known drunks, womanizers, having sex with female subordinates, covering up domestic violence incidents. I've never heard one thing about Tom Roberts bad. I heard he's not a liar, always treated people with respect. He's a family man. He's not a drunk. He's never screwed around on his wife. And the big thing with me, he never reached the rank of undersheriff. And to me, that is a plus why this man, Tom Roberts, is, in my opinion, the best choice for the next sheriff of Clark County, who will be running the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Then again, you vote for who you want to vote for. But in my opinion, Tom Roberts would make the best sheriff that we've ever had in at least the 30 years that I've been here in Clark County. So we got that. Get back up on the screen here. Okay. Took care of Mr. Roberts. Okay. Let's get back to what I was talking about, the introduction. This is episode 113. Get that back up on the screen here. Okay. Put me back over here. Here we go. Okay. This is episode 113, and it was titled LVMPD Officer's Negligence Caused Alleged Child Sexual Predator from Being Caught. Okay. And get me back up over here. Now, I stated in that episode that I was told that Airport Bureau officer, and again, the Airport Bureau are the police officers from the Las Vegas Metro Police who are assigned to the Harry Reid International Airport, formerly known as McCarran International Airport. And that in that episode 113, I talked about that my sources were telling me that he received a contact report, Officer Gutierrez, which is basically a disciplinary write-up, and that he had to go through remedial training. And this guy is a 30-year veteran in the police department, and he had to go through remedial training. Through the pipeline, I acquired the actual internal contact report, Las Vegas Metro report, that was written up by Sergeant Eric Gallegos, who is Diego Gutierrez's supervisor. So I'm going to be talking about that, and because it corroborates a lot what the sources told me when I did the podcast. So let me get that up on the screen, and I'll read it. Okay, let me get this off the banner here, and then let me take it off a second so if anybody wants to see it clear. And you go back and replay the video and freeze shot it and take a shot of that if you want. I'm back up on here. Okay, let me read this. Okay, it's the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department contact report, page 1 of 1, dated April 18, 2022. Employee name, Diego Gutierrez, P number 3899. Supervisor's name, E. Gallegos, P number 6628. Reference, corrective action plan recommendation. Officer Diego Gutierrez, P number 3899. As your supervisor, I am recommending a corrective action plan be implemented to review, reinforce, and remediate the basic skills connected to your job duties. My recommendation is based upon the following observations and actions over the past 3 months. Then it's got bullet points. Using, quote, I don't know, unquote, as a standard response to your peers. Not responding to your call sign and allowing other officers to take calls. Routinely taking a support cover position on calls despite being the primary unit. Lack of initiative to assist other officers. Delayed response times to calls, causing second or third units to complete initial contact. Failure to demonstrate basic investigation protocols. Inaccurate communication with fellow officers. Completion of only 3 reports over a period of 1 year and 4 months. Your peers have brought all of these concerns to your attention on multiple occasions. Other officers have spent time trying to enhance your skills. There has been no observable improvement on your part. Get back up on the screen here, full screen here. Continue reading from the contact report. Remember, this contact report is exclusive, as usual, with the stories that I break, to the Truth and Consequences podcast. Okay? And it goes on. There has been no observable improvement on your part. Continuing. As your sergeant and a 22-year veteran of LVMPD, my professional opinion is that you would benefit from refresher training on patrol and courses which would help you feel more comfortable to your duties as a police officer. The goal of these actions are to ensure you have all the necessary skills to be a confident and productive officer. Let me interject something here. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is a 30-year veteran, Officer Gutierrez, of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Continuing, in an effort to improve your noted deficiencies and support your continued employment and position within the airport, you are required to complete the following steps. Number 1, patrol familiarization, parentheses, minimum of 4 shifts on patrol, close parentheses. Number 2, taking reports for 1 full shift. These 2 steps are to be completed no later than May 15, 2022. You will be assigned to Southeast Area Command Day Shift. Upon completion, provide with me with evidence through copies of completed reports, parentheses, eliminating any identifying suspect information, close parentheses. We will discuss these reports and your reflections in a supervisory meeting to be completed no later than May 30th, 2022. Addition, I recommend you take 4 refresher courses. Number 1, search and seizure course, RBT course, and RBT, ladies and gentlemen, stands for reality-based training, so he has to take that course. And number 3, AOST course. Ladies and gentlemen, AOST is Advanced Officer Skills Training course. And number 4, Patrol Response to Sexual Assault course. And no kidding, because he allowed a alleged child sexual predator to walk because he didn't do his job, because he was negligent, had his head up his butt. This pisses me off again when I talk about this. Anything to do with kids, okay? Messing with kids, groping them, anything like that, okay? As far as I'm concerned, you deserve to get a bullet in your freaking head. That's my opinion, okay? So he has to go to that one. Patrol Response to Sexual Assault course. These courses are all offered through LVMPD's Professional Learning Opportunities. You are to schedule these on your own. You are to inform me of both enrollment and completion of each course. I will make myself available to you at any time during these required and recommended action steps for questions or needed clarifications. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you know the problem I got with this? Let me ask Joe Lombardo, the coward that doesn't want me to interview him like Kevin McMahill, okay? No balls, no guts, because they know I'm going to ask them questions that the media out here does not ask them, and information I receive from my sources. So Sheriff Joe Lombardo, let me ask you this question. How is it that this guy was working at the airport for months and obviously was a slug, for lack of a better words, for whatever reason, okay? Maybe 30 years, maybe he's just lazy, got disgusted with the job, went to the airport for some light duty, and he's going to stay there till he retires, because I understand from sources he doesn't want to retire, and I'll explain what they told me about that. But here's the problem we got, ladies and gentlemen. I talked about this in the podcast about this. This guy's inaction caused a suspected child predator who grabbed a child on an aircraft to walk free that day. They later, like I told you, I received information that they later identified the guy later on another day. But that day he walked free. Hopefully he didn't grope or molest any other kid. But they knew that this officer, Gutierrez, at the airport, wasn't doing his job for months. Ladies and gentlemen, this report that I'm sure Sheriff Joe Lombardo never would want the public to see the light of day, and like I said, I got it through the pipeline, and I acquired it. It's exclusive to my podcast. What it shows me is what the hell's going on at the airport. Because if this sergeant obviously was aware of this, and this write-up came after this incident that he didn't do his job, like I said, and allowed the scumbag to walk free, alleged scumbag, because, the allegations alleged, but, child groper, predator, okay? Why didn't somebody do something with this guy prior to something happening? Like, what were they waiting for? Like this incident where a child predator walked, or maybe somebody gets killed at the airport or hurt because this guy's not doing his job, so they don't do anything, and then they only do it after that incident happened. And I understand there was another officer that didn't actually do his job. His name is William Umana, involved with this, but he's supposed to be a good guy. He's a Medal of Valor winner. But this is the guy that had, and I'll talk about that in another podcast. I got more information coming in on that. But this guy, okay, was a known slug, was not doing his job for a long time, and nobody did anything about it. No sergeant, no lieutenant, no captain, nobody. Everybody at the airport, from I understand, knew what this guy is. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is another thing that Sheriff Lombardo would never want the public to see. And again, brought to you by the only independent investigative news journalist in Las Vegas who's been breaking one story after another for years on the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. 99% of what I break is never picked up by the local Las Vegas media. You ask your question why that is. But here's their document. They have it. They should call up the PIO and say, listen, because I know they call up the PO about other things that I do. They get no comments. Is this false? Is this counterfeit? Is this stuff that Doug Poppa is being told by all his police sources nonsense and lies? No, ladies and gentlemen, it's all true. Because my police sources are high-ranking supervisors, rank and file, civilians, okay? I'll get information from a variety of people. But here it is. You saw it on the screen, exclusive to this podcast. Now, according to sources, the reason why Officer Gutierrez doesn't want to retire, and he's eligible for retirement, he's been on the department for 30 years, is because supposedly he has child support and alimony. And I guess if he retires, I guess the way the retirement works, if you're married, his ex-wife can get half his benefits, so he has to work. But I look at it this way. Officer Gutierrez, from a former cop, okay, we appreciate the time you put on the police department, but it's time for you to go, okay? I don't think this guy's going to change his performance, but maybe he will. But my thing, like I said, this guy should have been fired. But the other thing, ladies and gentlemen, as far as I know, he hasn't been brought up in any of the disciplinary, like you got to go to, like a 30-year veteran has got to go to remedial training, okay? But did he get any? From my understanding, he didn't get nothing. He wasn't suspended. There was like really no investigation on this. And he caused an alleged child sexual predator to walk off that airplane without police intervention. And to me, the freaking guy should have been fucking fired. Excuse my language, but that's just the way I feel about it. Because anything to do with kids pisses me off. And if these people get away, these type of predators and stuff, alleged suspects in these things, because police were incompetent or negligent, well, they need to burn for it too. That's just the way I look at it. So anyway, going back to this reality-based training that he has to go to and the advanced officer skills training, sources told me that every police officer on Metro has to go through those two courses every year. It's reality-based training, and that's good that they go through it. But if you screw up, like this guy did, they send you back to that training again. So that's what we got going on over there. Now, let's get to episode 116. I'll get that on the screen here for a second. Episode 116, and again, another exclusive breaking news story from Truth or Consequences that was published on May 5th, this year, 22, episode 116, and the title of that one was 2 LVMPD officers under IAB investigation. One is LVPPA rep, sources say. And the LVPPA, like I stated in episode 116, is the union that represents the rank and file on the police department, the officers. Then they have a separate union, the PMSA, for supervisors and managers. So get back up on the screen there. Now, I have some new information reference the Internal Affairs investigation, according to police sources. And let me get some stuff on the screen. Remember, that podcast concerned Officer Raeann Armstrong. Get a picture up there for a second. That is her in uniform, Raeann Armstrong. And Officer John Abel. I'm not going to put Abel's pictures up. I don't have it on the input here, but he's the union rep. And I said in that podcast that, as far as I knew at the time, Abel was not on suspension or administrative leave, but Raeann Armstrong was, because of the incident I discussed in 116. I'll briefly talk about it here. Again, she is on administrative leave with pay. Like, this is my sources are telling me, okay? I don't know this lady. I'm going to get another picture up on the screen here. This is Officer, let me get me out of here. This is Officer Armstrong. Then a maiden name, it's on the diploma, is Raeann Bohm, B-O-H-M. And she graduated from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department Training Academy, the academy. She went to the academy, graduated in December 16. She got married to a gentleman, last name of Armstrong. I'll get to that in a second. But when she's in that photograph here, over there, is the guy with the smiling face. Everybody knows who that is. That is a corrupt, documented liar, incompetent Sheriff Joe Lombardo, who thinks he has what it takes to be the next governor of Nevada. The guy is corrupt, he's incompetent, and he's a documented liar. And I've proved all these things time and time again for years in stories I wrote for the Baltimore Post-Examiner and on my podcast. Okay? So there you have it. You want this guy as your governor? Vote for this dirtbag as your governor. Okay? It's up to you. Okay? Now, back to the Raeann Armstrong. Like I said, I received some updated information on Officer Raeann Armstrong, one of the 2 officers mentioned in episode 116. I stated in that episode that Officer Armstrong was assigned to the Northwest Area Command, and that after she responded to the bar and had the interaction with the motorcycle club, the biker club, Armstrong was transferred to the Enterprise Area Command. That's what I said in episode 116. I didn't have information then why she was transferred to the Enterprise Area Command after she went to that call at the bar with the biker group in there. And go back to 116 to look at everything I said. I'm not going to rehash everything I said in 116. But according to sources now, with knowledge of the Internal Affairs Bureau investigation, the reason she was transferred to the Enterprise Area Command was that Armstrong was allegedly marking out for 469s. And 469s is one of the 400 codes from what my sources are telling me, and I know this because we used the 400 codes when I was in the casino, so we're on the same track with Metro when I was director of security. So 469s, ladies and gentlemen, are bar perimeter checks. And I guess during a patrol, they can mark out and do bar perimeter checks to make sure everything's okay, no fights, no trouble going on. And according to what I was told, Officer Armstrong was falsifying the locations of the bar checks that she was at. Okay, pretty self-explanatory there. From what I was told, IAB detectives, Internal Affairs Bureau detectives, ascertained that Armstrong was signing out at one location when she was actually at another location where this biker club would be at. So, from my sources telling me, she knew where this biker club was at on different occasions, what bars they were hanging out at, I guess. And she would mark out at one bar where she wasn't at, and she was actually at a bar where this biker club was, and she would be interacting with them. So my understanding from what I'm told, and I mentioned this in a couple of podcasts before on some other incidents, they have GPS tracking. They can confirm where an officer is through the radio communication system and other things. And through the investigation, from what I'm told, the GPS tracking confirmed what I just said, that she was actually marking out at different bar locations for bar perimeter checks when she was not actually at that bar. She was at another one and allegedly interacting with the biker group. And I said in episode 116 that a family member of Armstrong had an association with the biker club, but that original complaint I talked about that in the Northwest when she went there where all this started, that family member was not in the bar that night, but the biker group was. Sources have now confirmed to me that the family member is actually Armstrong's husband, who has some affiliation with this biker club, and allegedly it's an outlaw biker club. And I'm not going to mention the name because I'm hearing two different biker groups' name, and so till I get more information on that. But allegedly, this group that obviously Officer Armstrong knew, and her family member her husband has some type of affiliation with, is an outlaw biker club. She's still on administrative leave at the time of this podcast, as far as I know. Now, as part of the Internal Affairs Bureau investigation, detectives would be checking Armstrong's computer activity. Remember, they have terminals in their car, and they could run all the stuff, background checks and license plates and everything like that, criminal checks. Detectives would be checking Armstrong's computer activity and her access to the SCOPE criminal records check system. The SCOPE is the system they go into to do NCIC checks, criminal checks for the FBI database. They run driver's licenses and stuff like that to determine if Officer Armstrong was releasing confidential information to third parties that they shouldn't get. Okay, and from what I was told, the department was aware that Armstrong's husband was associated with this biker club because of a prior domestic violence incident at their residence. So, from what I was told, is they were aware, some people in the department, that because they had a domestic violence call at a house and they knew that her husband was associated with this group. Again, this is what my sources are telling me. And again, I would love to call up the PIO and get some confirmation on this. But like I said, Joe Lombardo ordered the PIO last year, some time ago, not to acknowledge me because he knows my information's good. so just don't answer them. But other news outlets should be all over this, and I'm going to tell you why. Because, like I said, I was a cop, I was a detective, I worked undercover. We had a similar incident like this years ago in the Washington, D.C. area, okay? I've never heard of an actual police officer, and maybe there is one out there, and let's separate it apart from this case. I don't want to talk about this case, but where I was aware of during my time on the department, where an actual police officer was actually married to a outlaw biker club member. But back then, we did have girlfriends and family members that these outlaw biker clubs would get to work, hire, okay, into police departments and records and stuff like that. So they have access to police reports, criminal records checks, and that has occurred over time. You know, you go back and there's news stories on it, and I'm personally aware of that. When I was a cop back in the Washington, D.C. area, there were some people who were actually arrested because they had their girlfriends working in police departments, and unbeknownst to the police department, they have access to the records, undercover cops, pagers, and that's a whole other thing I'll talk about. We had an incident with the company with the pager systems back then, and was put a lot of cops' lives in danger. Anyway, that's something else I don't want to get into, but we'll get into that in another episode. I'm at 31 minutes here, and I can make these podcasts go as long as I want, but with these allergies, like I said, my throat, my ears, I can't hear. I'm stuffed up, and it's my own fault, ladies and gentlemen. You know, it's like my old girlfriend used to say, I don't feel sorry for you because you don't take nothing. And she was right. I don't take a pill. I don't have a pill. I said the other day, there's not even a bottle of aspirin in my house. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. I don't believe in prescription, over-the-counter prescription medication. You know, I suffered through this. You know, I got major back problems. And, you know, I bent down the wrong way. I'm in pain for like weeks. I don't take nothing. I suffered through it. I faded out of my head, even though it's still there. I just don't believe in it. But so it's my own fault. But the wind the past couple of days has been terrible. And when the windows are open, the wind's blowing. Even if you turn the air conditioning on, it still seeps through. Anyway, enough of that bond. You know, you don't care about that. Now, what I'll put on the screen over here, because I'm going to do more podcasts on this section of the police department. This is, let me get this guy's picture up over here. Okay, what are you looking at? Joey Herring, lieutenant at Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Joey Herring. And the guy's looks like he's in his 50s. Maybe he should change his name to Joe Herring, but he wants to get everybody call him Joey. Okay, call him Joey. Okay, back over here. Okay, I don't mean that. I'm making fun of the guy. You know, Joey. Okay, guy's Joe Herring. Okay, anyway, lieutenant. And he is in charge of the criminal intelligence section. And I got more podcasts coming out on that section because a lot of people that were assigned over the years to that section did some really outrageous stuff. But anyway, we'll get to that down the road. Anyway, from what my sources are telling me is that he's under some type of scrutiny because he's the lieutenant in charge of the criminal intelligence section. And for those of you who don't know, the criminal intelligence section of the Las Vegas Metro Police, they do undercover work, they do surveillance, they investigate organized crime, political corruption, cops who are involved in criminal activity. They do all that stuff. And they have detectives, some of them don't look like cops, and they're all undercover. And the last I heard, I don't know if it's true, but I know years ago, even their headquarters, their office, was off property from the police department. It was somewhere near, I know where it is, but I'm not going to say where it is. But whether it's still there or they moved them into 400 Martin Luther King when they put the building up, I doubt it because these guys are like real strict undercover. But anyway, who cares, right? You don't care about that. Okay, anyway, why is he under scrutiny? Because it's my sources are telling me there's some discrepancies or something going on with cash expenditures, monies being used by the criminal intelligence detectives. So as I get more information on that from the headquarters, because that's, I'll let you know. And I know this guy's been in and out, they told me the past week or so, in and out of headquarters over there. So anyway, there's something funny going on, allegedly. I say allegedly because this is what they tell me, with monies and cash expenditures used by the criminal intelligence section. So we got that out. Somebody mentioned the other day, they looked at a podcast that I did. I want to get up on the screen because I never saw this before. This is like freaking unbelievable. And let me get this on the screen here. Episode 59. Okay. Episode 59, which I published on August 9th, 2021. And as you can see, the title of my podcast there is Las Vegas Massacre, FBI, LVMPD, MGMRI, which stands for MGM Resorts International, the owners of the Mandalay Bay, where Paddock fired out the window. New sniper attack posed a threat prior to 2017. Now, that podcast was an update to this story that I did back in 2018. The Baltimore Post-Examiner broke this story, and it's my story. I wrote it. That we broke it. Okay, like as we broke many stories relating to the massacre that nobody ever touched. And it was titled "FBI's Elite Hostage Rescue Team and the Las Vegas Police Trained for Similar Mass Shooting Scenario Years Before." Now, ladies and gentlemen, the photograph you see on that story, and I have the links to those stories and the links to these podcasts, everything I talk about here, I have links in, so it's easy to you review them. But that was just a photograph that the editor of the Baltimore Post-Examiner, which is based out of Maryland, found on the internet because it involved the hostage rescue team, I said in my story. So he just pulled a picture off in that picture. But take a look at that picture. Take a look at that helicopter, and there's two guys on each side, snipers, HRT, and that's from the hostage rescue team. That's an actual HRT helicopter from Quantico, Virginia. But I'm going to get to that in a second. So I did that. And then 2 months later, let me get back up over here. 2 months later, we broke another story, and it was titled, this is 2018 November now, exclusive, MGM Resorts International executive knew that a sniper attack from a hotel high-rise posed a threat prior to the October 1st massacre. Okay? And you read these stories, and I'll have the link to the podcast, the episode I did on it. I did the updated because it's filled with. If you haven't looked at this, you look at it because it's freaking unbelievable what I uncovered. Okay, and like I said, we got 5 years this November, a month before the election. We have the 5 years since the Las Vegas massacre. So let me put something up on the screen. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It's a 45-minute podcast, and the stories are kind of involved. But I'm just going to put this up on the screen so you can see it here for a second. Okay. Now, remember the photograph on the Baltimore Post-Examiner? Now, last year, I uncovered a training film that was done by the FBI, the hostage rescue team. They did like a commercial for the HRT. And embedded in that training film was this 8-second clip that I keep looping here on the screen. But what do you see, ladies and gentlemen? That is the actual HRT helicopter that we had the photograph of when we did the story. We broke the story in 2018. But look where they're at. They're inside the Old Sahara Hotel when it was being closed in 2011 for renovations. It was going to open up at the SLS Resort, and it did, and now it's back called the Sahara Hotel again. That's what's important here is that's the HRT helicopter, hostage rescue team, FBI, with 2 FBI HRT members, snipers, and what they're doing, they're shooting ammunition at targets, simulating an attack from an elevated position inside a hotel and hotel tower, and there's some targets around. You have to look at the whole video that I did. Why am I bringing it up? Because somebody brought up the other day that just saw it, some retired cop from not from Vegas, and said, that's freaking unbelievable. Why wasn't that on the front page of any news, even the national media? Because the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department with their SWAT team was there at that training scenario in 2011, and I also broke a confidential internal LVMPD memo that corroborated what my sources were telling me. And I broke the story because a high-ranking member of the LVMPD first gave me the information on this. And the point being is this, okay? That training took place in 2011. The first Route 91 Harvest Music Festival occurred in 2014. Then they had one in 2015. And they had one in 2016. And then we had the one in 2017 that led to the death of now 60 people, because 2 more died from their injuries, and the wounding of almost 500 people. And not at any one of those Route 91 Harvest Music Festivals, after being trained that a sniper attack was possible from a hotel high-rise tower, they had no counter snipers standing by ever, even during the Las Vegas massacre. So when Joe Lombardo and Kevin McMahill talk about how great they did that night, they're full of crap, because I did a lot of stuff proving a lot of stuff that they should have had in place. They didn't have in place. And they did this big review afterwards. Oh, now we're going to, ladies and gentlemen, they didn't even have a mass casualty incident plan in place prior to the 2017 Las Vegas massacre. And listen to this podcast, because it's unbelievable, the stuff that I show in here, documents from Homeland Security and the FBI, okay, that they didn't even have that plan in place, even though for years they knew that Las Vegas could be the subject of a terrorist or lone wolf type of attack. Anyway, I'm not going to go through the whole podcast because it's pretty involved. But anyway, somebody brought it up to me the other day and said, I just saw that. He goes, it's freaking unbelievable. How do you come up with this stuff? And nobody talks about it. Well, they don't, okay? But get back over here. Okay, mic back a little here. Okay, so anyway, that's what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, both Sheriff Lombardo and his former undersheriff, Kevin McMahill, are documented liars, at the least. That's the least documented, and I proved that time and again, okay? And Kevin McMahill, who going around all these little campaign things that he's doing, bragging about how great he was the night of the massacre, and I brought this up in another podcast, police sources who spoke to me said both him and Assistant Sheriff Todd Fasulo were drunk when they responded that night to the massacre, because these guys are heavy drinkers. Okay, and they were even staying in the back because they didn't want anybody to see them originally because they reeked of alcohol. But the reason why I'm saying that is Kevin McMahill in 2018, and I broke this story for the Baltimore Post-Examiner, and I updated in a podcast, and I'll have the link in this description. He was interviewed in 2018 by Fox News for a story about the massacre. And without total disregard, respect for the people who were killed, this guy that wants to run the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and he thinks he's going to be the next sheriff, went on national television on Fox News and lied about the Las Vegas massacre when the firing stopped. And you can go in, I'm not going to get into the whole thing, go in and listen to the podcast and stuff that's in there, and I'll have the link to my story. The point being is this. In 2018, well after a year after the massacre happened, okay, he went on national television and lied his ass off, saying that the firing stopped when Levi Hancock's ad hoc team breached they took the bracket off the door and got into the hallway. Ladies and gentlemen, that was an all-out lie. The firing stopped almost an hour before. But he said that to make himself and the department look good. He didn't care about the people who died, and I got tons of emails from family members and survivors that said that's a bunch of BS. I even called up Fox News, because I was on Fox News. I was on Tucker Carlson a couple times with Carolyn Lombardo, no relation to Joe Lombardo, one of the attorneys, one of the first attorneys that handled the civil suits for the victims. And I said, listen, how can you allow that to go on? Didn't anybody vet what he said? Do you know what nobody's talking about? The guy's a freaking liar. So I'm just bringing that up because this is the guy that wants to run the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Maybe he was drunk when he was on Fox News. I don't know. He has a history, according to my sources, of being a heavy drinker, okay? And I have a problem with that somebody wants to run the police department. And he even said on some thing recently that, I responded code 3 from my house that night. Yeah, sources say he was drunk. So he had his weapon on, which is a violation of the law. Can't carry a weapon if you're intoxicated. He's driving his car there, okay? That's what sources are telling me. So anyway, take it for what it's worth. We're at 44 minutes. I'm going to shut this down. Throat's killing me. So much more stuff coming out about, nobody knew about this either, okay? I got this other story's coming out. Kevin McMahill targeted and approved a lieutenant to be brought up on charges the night of the massacre. This lieutenant, and I'm going to mention his name and everything about this whole thing and the information I got, was under attack, gunfire, like other cops were. They were on the radio saying, I'm under attack, okay? He brought this lieutenant up on charges, okay? And I'm going to get into the whole of that thing, just like he brought up other people for charges that he knew were false over the years, other cops. because he didn't like him. He was trying to protect a friend on this other case that I'm talking about. I got so much stuff on this guy. So, and Lombardo also. Okay. So anyway, that's the way it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's 15:53 hours, 3:53 p.m., May 9th, 2022, from Las Vegas. You've been listening to the Doug Poppa Truth and Consequences podcast from Las Vegas, Nevada. Remember, if you're not subscribed to my channel, subscribe by hitting the red subscribe button, because you will not see these breaking news stories in any other media outlet in Las Vegas or even national, because people don't want to do them. Okay? Fine. I do them. And I keep saying that. And I will continue to do them. And if you can, if you want to donate some money, paypal.me/Doug Poppa. Like I said, I'm self-funded. Me and my team work hard with sources to get this information and do these investigations, get out. And sometimes me and my team are burned out. And I told you who my team is. 3 people. Me, myself, and I. I don't work for a newspaper. I don't work for a radio station, a television station. I don't have big research assistants like these newspapers and these TV stations have the investigative news teams. I am one guy that for years has been breaking one story after another, not only on the Las Vegas massacre, but also the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and the BS that's been going on in there with Sheriff Lombardo and Kevin McMahill's cover-ups, okay? One guy, me, and nobody else reports on this. So just want to get that out. People say you don't promote yourself enough when you do these podcasts. So I just promoted myself, okay? And the other thing is that the audio podcast, the big ones, iHeartRadio, Spotify, a lot of people like to listen to the audio and not watch the video. So, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate the support. So much more things coming you will not hear from the mainstream media. Appreciate it, and thanks for the support, and you all have a good evening.